Loyalty is not dead. This was proven by Jack Henderson, an old farmer from Liberty. He lived on his ancestral farm, which the authorities wanted to seize for a highway, but he stood his ground and triumphed over the system. Hi everyone, welcome to Life Unveiled. Let's get started. Jack Henderson was 73 years old and had spent most of his life, 55 years, on a farm in the small town of Liberty, Texas. He was born here in 1950. In an old wooden house with a sagging porch and creaky floorboards, built by his grandfather, William Henderson, in 1898. William had purchased 50 acres of land for a handful of dollars, and a dream of a fresh start back when Texas was still a wild frontier, full of hope and peril. Jack came into the world in a small upstairs bedroom where his mother, Margaret, sewed patchwork quilts and sang lullabies in her gentle voice. She died of fever when he was 12, leaving him with his father, Edward, among the cornfields and pastures where 20 cows grazed. Jack knew them all by name: Bessie, Rosie, Millie, Dottie, Lulu, Cherry, and could tell you about each one. Bessie always gave the most milk, Rosie loved to butt heads, and Millie nuzzled like a dog. Edward, a tall man with a stern face and a kind heart, taught his son everything: how to plough with an old mule-drawn plough, how to fix a tractor, how to milk cows without getting kicked. After Edward's death in 1975 from a heart attack, Jack inherited the farm and swore to keep it as it had been under his grandfather and father. This was also where he lived with his wife Ellen, whom he met in 1970 at a county fair nearby. She was the daughter of a school teacher, with long blonde hair and a smile that took Jack's breath away. They married in 1972 beneath an old oak by the barn, and Ellen brought warmth to the house. She sang country songs while cooking fried chicken and potatoes, embroidered kitchen curtains, and laughed at Jack's clumsy attempts to dance to the radio. They had no children. Fate decided otherwise, but their love was quiet and strong. Ellen passed away 10 years ago after a long illness, and since then, Jack lived alone. He didn't clear out her things. Her sewing box still sat on the dresser, and her favourite blue dress hung in the closet. The farm became his solace. The house stood on a hill, surrounded by golden fields, with a red barn smelling of hay and a windmill creaking in the breeze. Jack repaired it every spring, grumbling that a pump would be easier. But secretly he loved the sound. It reminded him of childhood. On the porch hung a swing he'd built for Ellen, and every evening he sat there with a mug of coffee, watching sunsets paint the fields crimson. He loved the scent of freshly cut grass, the rustle of leaves, and the chirping of crickets at night. It all began on a scorching July day in 2023 when a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up to the farm's gate. A simple wooden one, its paint peeling, with a crooked Henderson sign. 3 people stepped out. Thomas Reed, a gaunt official with a cold stare and thin lips, dressed in a dark suit that seemed out of place in this dusty backwater. Michael Gray, his assistant, a young man of about 25 with a nervous smile, whose new boots quickly got coated in red Texas clay. And Emily Crawford, a lawyer with short chestnut hair in a stern grey suit, clutching a thick folder. They represented the county administration and brought official notice. Jack's farm was to be seized for the state. A highway was planned through these lands, linking Liberty to a major city 100 miles north. The project promised economic growth, jobs in construction and trade, an influx of tourists, rising property values. But for Jack, whose life had been tied to this land for 55 years, it meant the end of everything he knew and cherished. Thomas Reed stepped forward, handing over papers stamped with the state seal. "Mr. Henderson, this decision comes from the state level. You'll be compensated, $200,000. That's more than your land's market value. Sign here and you can move out in a month." Jack stood on the porch in his faded plaid shirt, once mended by Ellen, and an old straw hat he'd bought in his youth. His blue eyes, weathered by sun and time, narrowed in anger. He didn't take the papers. His voice, usually soft, turned sharp. "Do you even realize this isn't just land? It's my life, my family, my history. I was born here, Raised crops here, buried my wife here. Get off my farm before I call the sheriff." Emily Crawford, accustomed to office negotiations, tried to soften the blow. "We understand your feelings, Mr. Henderson, but progress demands sacrifices. This is for everyone's good." Jack glared at her as if she were an alien, spat into the dust at their feet, and stormed inside, slamming the door so hard that a few dry leaves fluttered off the roof. The next day, rumors of the authorities' visit spread through Liberty like wildfire. The town was tiny, just 2,000 souls, one school with peeling paint, 2 stores with faded signs, and an old gas station on the outskirts where locals gathered to chat over coffee. Everyone knew each other by name. Margaret Baker, Jack's neighbour, lived in a quaint house with blue shutters half a mile from his farm. At 65, she baked him apple pies every Christmas, feeling he'd been lonely as a stray dog since Ellen's death. She loved sitting on her porch, gazing at Henderson's fields, which reminded her of her childhood when her father tinkered with his tractor. Sam Wilson, a young farmer in his 30s with broad shoulders and calloused hands, owned land across the road from Jack. He saw the old man as a mentor. Jack had taught him how to fight weeds without chemicals and fix an ancient tractor Sam bought cheap. Even Sheriff Bob Kelly, a hefty man with grey whiskers and a warm gaze, respected Jack for his stubbornness and honesty. They'd been friends since childhood, fishing together in the local creek, and once Jack pulled Bob from the water when he got tangled in a net. People whispered in the store, at the gas station, during Sunday service at the little wooden church with its peeling white paint. Are they really kicking the old man out? That's unfair. But no one knew how to fight the state's power with its papers and laws. Jack, though, wasn't about to give up. That evening, he sat at the old oak table in the living room, a hefty piece, darkened by time, with Edward's initials carved into the edge. Before him lay a stack of yellowed paper from a dresser drawer and a simple ballpoint pen. He began writing letters, long, detailed by hand, like his father had in tough times. One to the governor, whose name he'd seen in a paper. Another to the local Liberty Post. A third to the district congressman he'd glimpsed at a campaign rally a decade ago. In each, he told his story. How William fought off bandits with a revolver to protect the plot. How Edward sold family silver in 1932 to buy seeds. How he, Jack, worked 18-hour days during the 1980s drought to save the harvest. "I'm not asking for mercy," he wrote, tracing the letters slowly and neatly. "I'm asking for justice. This land isn't just a spot on a map. It's a piece of America you've forgotten." He finished late at night, with crickets singing outside and the moon hanging over the field like a silver lantern. The next morning, he took the letters to the Liberty Post Office, where old Marge, the postmistress who'd known him since he was in diapers, said, "Show 'em, Jack." He nodded, but didn't expect replies. He knew papers rarely beat bureaucrats. Meanwhile, the authorities pressed on. A week after the first visit, a tractor bearing the Texas Roads logo roared up to the farm, its engine startling Jack's cows into anxious lowing. Behind it came surveyors, 3 young men in orange vests, armed with theodolites and bundles of stakes. They started marking the land, driving orange pegs into the corn, snapping stalks and leaving tracks in the soft soil. Jack emerged with his shotgun, an old, rusty piece with a cracked stock, unused since he hunted rabbits 40 years ago. "Get off my land," he shouted, his voice echoing across the field, startling crows from the oak. The surveyors froze. The youngest dropped his tablet in the mud. "Sir, we're just doing our job," he stammered, but Jack stepped closer and they retreated to the road, calling the police. Sheriff Bob Kelly arrived half an hour later in his dusty pickup. He stepped out, adjusted his hat, and gave Jack a weary smile. "Jack, lower the gun," he said softly. "You don't want trouble." Jack replied, "Bob, if they take the farm, jail's the lesser evil." Bob sighed, understanding his friend, but drove off, promising to talk to the authorities. The incident hit the news. Caitlin Morris, a Liberty Post reporter, visited Jack. They sat on the porch as he recalled his grandfather, father, and Ellen. Her article, Jack Henderson's Last Stand, went viral online. A petition gathered 5,000 signatures. The authorities filed a lawsuit. Judge Harold Brown heard Emily, $50 million a year, 300 jobs, and Jack, this is my story. He delayed the ruling. Farmers and activists flocked to the farm. Sam organised a rally at the courthouse, 100 people with signs. Margaret baked pies, Bob showed support. The story reached national news. The judge ruled, the farm stays. The highway was rerouted 3 miles east. Jack returned to his cows and sunsets, becoming Liberty's symbol of resilience. The lesson is clear. Faith and community can beat the system. Jack proved traditions still matter.
If you enjoyed this story, drop a like and subscribe for more tales like this. Hit the bell, and we'll catch you in the next one.